All right, let's just dive right into this one. Welcome to The Explainer, everyone. Today we're exploring a story that, well, it literally bridges the absolute mud and grit of a medieval fantasy realm with the mind-bending terror of the infinite cosmos. We're looking at the lore of a tiny child lizard folk boy, just a nameless hatchling, really. His life begins in the most claustrophobic, miserable conditions you can imagine, and then intersects with the very fabric of the universe itself. It's a journey from cold iron to starry voids. So let's set the scene in the darkest corner of this world. Picture this. Before there was any concept of the open sky, before friendship, before the sweet taste of freedom, there was literally only a cage. Our subject starts his life trapped inside the crooked, foul-smelling hut of a hag known as Mother Mary. It's an incredibly gritty, harsh existence. This young lizard folk boy is nothing more than a captive pet, shivering in the damp chill of the hut, wearing absolutely nothing but a simple, dirty loincloth. The cold iron bars of that tiny cage, those are the absolute limits of his entire universe. He is poked, prodded, and entirely powerless. Section 1. Captivity in the Amber Forest. Okay, looking at the timeline of his early life, it is steeped in a very dark, grounded realism. At age 0, before he was even born, his egg, which was a runt compared to the others, was handed over to Mother Mary. But get this, it wasn't just found, it was a gift from a deeply mysterious entity known as Oozghul. And people in this realm only whisper that name because Oozghul's influence stretches way beyond the dense canopy of the Amber Forest, and, well, his gifts are never innocent. By month 1, the boy hatches directly into that tiny cage. And he just stays there. He endures this grim routine until year 2, when everything abruptly, violently changes with the arrival of an adventuring group called the Gnoll's Bane. Section 2. The Fall of Mother Mary. The pacing of this boy's life goes from a stagnant crawl to absolute chaos in a matter of seconds. The adventurers, the Gnoll's Bane, kick in the door of the hut, seeking bargains and answers. But as you know, this is a harsh world, and they very quickly discover the hag's deception. What follows is definitely not a polite disagreement. It is a brutal, chaotic clash. We're talking the flash of heavy medieval steel and the roaring, explosive force of raw magic. It's a violent battle that rocks the tiny hut to its foundations, and it finally ends with a fatal sword strike that brings the terrible Mother Mary down for good. But that leaves us with a pretty terrifying question. What happens when a hag's ancient dark magic actually dies? Because in a world where magic is bound to blood and bone, death doesn't always claim its victims quietly. Section 3. The Astral Serpent's Song. So an astral wound blooms within her dying body, opening up like a miniature black hole, right there in the dirt and grime of the hut. The entire structure shakes violently. This magical rift begins dragging everything inward, literally ripping the fabric of the room apart. And our terrified tiny lizard folk boy, still clutching the bars of his iron cage, he is suddenly exposed to the infinite. The absolutely crucial point here is what he sees in that impossible tear in reality. Looking far beyond the tearing void, deep into the infinite distance of the cosmos, the hatchling glimpses an entity. It is vast, it's shining, it's beautiful, and it is serpent-like, coiling majestically through the astral darkness. But here's the crazy part. It wasn't just a sight, it was a sound. A voice echoing through the cosmos, a vibrant, haunting song that reached out from the stars and wrapped itself securely around the little boy's soul. This completely illustrates the duality of this child's existence. On one side, you've got the absolute gritty realism of his physical life, right? The cold iron cage, the mud, the smell of the dead hag, the rough loincloth. But then on the other side, you have this vibrant, haunting cosmic song of a radiant serpent. That contrast is just staggering, and it fundamentally changes him. In fact, that astral music left such an imprint on his soul that it's a tune he still hums to himself to this very day. Section 4. Food, Trust, and Friendship. Eventually, the magical chaos ends. The rift closes, the adventurers leave the ruined hut, completely unaware of the profound impact they've just had. And what does our boy do? Well, he simply follows them. He is small, he's quiet, and he's completely uncertain of this vast new wilderness outside his cage. He trails the Gnoll's Bane from a distance, hiding in the brush, and he manages to stay hidden right up until they make camp beneath the night sky, and his small, empty stomach growls loud enough to betray his position in the dark. It's the old ranger Talonor Duskwind who actually finds the boy. Talonor reaches into his pouch and offers the frightened child a handful of good berries, expecting absolutely nothing in return. Now, to truly understand this moment, we have to look at the lizard folk's psyche. For them, trust is the absolute equation of food with safety and companionship. It isn't just a polite gesture, it is a literal binding contract of care. I really want to focus on this quote directly from the lore because it's the emotional anchor of this boy's entire journey. Food was trust, food was safety, food was friendship. In that single, quiet exchange of a handful of berries over a crackling campfire, a profound bond was formed. The boy wasn't just fed, he was accepted. From that precise moment on, the little hatchling chose this rugged band of adventurers as his own family. And we actually see this newfound autonomy in his very appearance. He is no longer just a captive pet. He starts picking up discarded bits of leather straps around the camp, working them with his small claws. He eventually transitions from that miserable captive's loincloth into a makeshift, rough-hewn leather vest and a little pair of trousers. It's a highly realistic, grounded detail, right? A child improvising his own clothes, visually declaring himself a free boy and an active member of this adventuring party. And, of course, with a family comes an identity. The old ranger, Talonor, eventually gives the nameless hatchling a title. He names him Ord, after a fiercely loyal dragon from the ancient, dusty fairy tales of this medieval world. It's a name that carries weight, expectation, and, above all else, belonging. Which brings us to this final, lingering thought. Today, Ord marches alongside his new companions, his makeshift leather vest securely fastened, heading into the rugged mountains of a deeply dangerous fantasy world. And as he walks, he is quietly humming that distant, impossible song of the shining astral serpent. He is entirely unaware of what it might one day mean. But the cosmos reached into a tiny iron cage and touched him for a reason. So the question we have to leave you with is, when that song finally reaches its crescendo, what will Ord become? Thanks for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.